Aloha, welcome to Malama Kupuna, where we talk about topics of interest to our kupuna, our elders, and those who love them. I'm attorney Scott Makuakane with the law firm of Estate Planning Counsel. What I'd like to do this week is talk about charitable planning, and I'm going to come at it from the angle of the nuts and bolts, and we're going to take it from a very basic level. But hopefully by the end of this show, you're going to understand some of the really important building blocks when it comes to charitable planning. You know, you've probably heard that old joke about the pastor who's doing the funeral service, and at the end of the service, just when he's finishing the burial, the decedent, that's lawyer talk for the dead guy, the decedent's CPA and attorney both come running up to the pastor, and they want to brag about what they know about this person's estate. And they come up to the pastor and they say, "Pastor, do you realize how much that man left behind?" And the pastor said, "Well, of course." And they said, "He told you how much he left behind?" And the pastor said, "Well, he didn't have to, because I know he left it all behind." And every single one of us is going to leave it all behind. In one way or another, everything we own is going to be left behind. And so we need to think about the consequences of those assets that we leave behind. There are a variety of places that our assets can go. For example, you can leave it to your family. You can leave it to the IRS. You can leave it to your favorite charity or charities. Now, leaving it to the family, obviously, is a really good solution. Leaving it to the IRS, not so much. Leaving it to your favorite charity is something that not everybody thinks about, but there really are some wonderful opportunities out there to both bless our family and bless our favorite charities. And here's something to think about. Once you get to the age where your kids are self-sufficient, they've got their own careers, they've got their own houses, they're launched off and in the process of educating their own families and not really having any financial needs themselves, might it make sense for you to think about at least giving some of what you leave behind to charity as opposed to leaving it all to the family? And I'm not talking about cutting your family out of your estate plan. I'm just talking about thinking about the question of, is it going to make sense maybe to leave some to charity and some to family as opposed to leaving it all to family? I think that's probably the default that most of us follow is, of course, when I'm gone, everything goes to family. But there's an awful lot of wonderful things that we can do by way of charities, whether it's our church, whether it's the Heart Association, whether it's for cancer research. There's an awful lot of good things that we can fund that are going to bless our families as well. But if we don't think about it, we won't take the opportunity to do those kinds of charitable gifts. Now, during your lifetime, you can give to charity. You can also give to charity after you're gone. Now, there's a variety of ways to give to charity after you're gone. One of them is by way of an outright bequest. In other words, you can say in your will, or you can say in your trust agreement, upon my death, I want X% of my estate, or I want X number of dollars to go to this charity, and whatever's left after that can go in equal shares to my children, or something like that. That would be what we call an outright bequest. Another way you can give to charity is by creating a foundation. In other words, maybe you have certain charitable goals that you would like to see accomplished after you're gone. So you can actually create an organization to carry out those goals after your death. That kind of planning obviously is a lot more expensive than an outright gift, and there's also a lot of administrative costs of running a foundation. Well, another option that's available to you is creating a component fund within an existing foundation. There are a lot of really neat foundations out there that do a lot of great charitable work. One of them here in Hawaii is called the Hawaii Community Foundation. And with the Hawaii Community Foundation, you can create a component fund that may provide, let's say, scholarships to a certain university, or it can provide for prenatal care, or it can provide for a variety of things. Another kind of foundation that you could consider giving through is something called the National Christian Foundation, which actually has a local chapter. It has a local affiliate. And what you can do with that kind of giving is you can create a component fund by making a gift to the foundation. And the foundation itself is a charity. So in other words, when you make that gift, you get a charitable deduction for that gift, even if you haven't decided where you want those specific funds to go. So for example, one of the kinds of things you can do is create a component fund with, let's say, $10,000 in the Hawaii Christian Foundation. You then can take your time in deciding where you want that $10,000 to go. Do you want it to go to your church? Do you want it to go to another charity? Well, you can have those checks go out as you direct, and you can make them either anonymous. You can just ask the foundation to say, here's a gift from the Hawaii Community Foundation, or you can say, here's a gift from, fill in your name here, wanting to provide for this certain charitable purpose. So there's a variety of ways to gift after you're gone. One of the most important being by way of beneficiary designation. Now, beneficiary designation would involve, let's say, a life insurance policy or a retirement plan or perhaps even an annuity, where you can say that after I'm gone, I want this percentage or this amount to go to this charity. You can have it all go to charity. You can have it part go to charity, part go to your family members. You can have it go to multiple charities. Now, when it comes to planning for your retirement plans, IRAs, 401ks, anything that you've contributed to during your lifetime, one of the things you have to at least think about is those kinds of assets are potentially subject to double taxation. In other words, they're going to be subject to income tax if they go out to individuals, no matter what. They may also be subject to something called the estate tax. The estate tax is a tax essentially on the privilege of owning stuff when you die. And traditionally, the way the estate tax has worked is you add up everything the dead person owned and then send half of it to the IRS. Now, the law has changed a great deal, even over the time that I've been practicing law. So over the last 30 years, we've seen a big change in the way that the IRS allows us to pass some of our assets tax-free. When I first started practicing law, the amount that you could pass tax-free was $600,000. And back then, in 1983, $600,000 seemed like an awful lot of money. Well, that number has actually gone up pretty dramatically over the years, until now the amount that you can pass estate tax-free is $5 million. And that amount is adjusted for inflation so that as of 2013, you can pass $5.25 million to anyone you want without any estate taxation whatsoever. Now, in addition to that $5.25 million, there's something called the unlimited marital deduction. So if your spouse is a U.S. citizen, you can leave any amount that you want, any amount that you have, to that person. There's no tax at that time. It doesn't get rid of the tax, however. What the marital deduction does is postpone the tax, so that when the surviving spouse dies, that's when the tax man comes to call. That's when those estate taxes have to be paid. Now, between husband and wife, if they plan wisely, they get two shots at that $5.25 million, so that as of this year, a married couple can give $10.5 million worth of assets to anybody they want, completely estate tax-free. Now, if your estate is over that amount that you can pass tax-free, you're particularly encouraged to think about charitable giving. Now, you can give to your kids if you want and pay the tax, but if you give to charity, your gift is completely estate tax-free as long as it's a U.S. charity. So in other words, you can give the $5.25 million to your kids and give any excess to charity. That way, all of your money is going exactly where you would want it to go, and none of it is going to end up in the hands of Congress, who may not spend it the way you would want it to be spent. Now, giving after you're gone is a wonderful thing, and it's something that we certainly encourage our clients to think about. But what about this? If you're giving while you're living, you're knowing where it's going. In other words, you can actually get a preview of what your gift is going to do in the hands of the recipients. And that's true whether it's your family members, giving to your children and just seeing how wisely they handle what you've given them. But it can also apply to charity. If you make a large gift to charity, is that charity going to handle that gift wisely? Well, you can get a little bit of a preview by giving something while you're alive to decide whether you want to give even more after you're gone. Giving while you're alive presents a whole bunch of opportunities. A lot of them involve income tax deductions, but really what we should be thinking about in terms of charitable gifts is this an organization that's going to do good? Is this an organization that's going to do the right thing with the gift that I'm giving? Is this a cause that I really truly believe in? Because if it is that kind of cause, then it shouldn't really matter whether you get a charitable deduction for the gift or not. This should be something that you really do want to support. Well, let's talk about some of the ways that you can give while you're alive. One thing that I encourage clients to think about, especially this year in 2013, is giving their RMD to their YFC. Now, by RMD, what I'm talking about is the required minimum distribution that has to be made from your IRA once you reach age 70 and a half, or be subject to huge penalties. And when I refer to YFC here, there actually is a charitable organization called Youth for Christ that goes by the initials YFC. But I'm using those initials here to stand for your favorite charity. And Youth for Christ is a wonderful charity to give to. I've supported them in the past. But what I'm referring to here is your favorite charity. Now, the way that RMD works is that we get to set up traditional IRAs, we get to set up 401ks, and during our lifetime we put money into that retirement plan, and we actually get to take a deduction for the money that we've put in there. The money grows tax deferred, meaning that if the money is invested in something that produces dividends or produces interest, or if it invests in an asset that's sold and there's capital gain, there's no tax to pay as long as those assets stay inside that retirement plan. The catch is that when the money comes out, it will be subject to tax. Now, what happens with the RMD is Congress gets to sit there watching us have our retirement plans grow and grow and grow, tax deferred. And there comes a time when Congress just loses patience and they say, we're tired of this. We want to see some of that money come out. We want to see those RMDs be taken. We want to make sure that a certain amount is going to be taken out so that we can impose taxes on it. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on the RMD and the opportunity that we have this year as of 2013 to make gifts through our IRAs. Be back in just a minute. Estate planning isn't just for the super wealthy. There are some important legal documents that should be part of all of our rule books, the sets of instructions for what will happen if we're not able to give directions ourselves. To learn more, give us a call at 587-8227 to reserve a seat at one of our free, no pressure or obligation estate planning workshops. That's 587-8227, or check out the resources we've posted at www.est8planning.com.